So I'm going to open this by saying Riverside fucking sucks. Because Riverside has, I guess they're owned by Amazon, which I did not know that. So I guess I'm helping out Amazon in two ways with my job and by giving them a monthly subscription.
Basically keeping the show running, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Supporting Bezos and his, he's struggling right now financially.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, so Riverside has some server issues. I'm just kidding, Riverside. You're a great platform when you work. So we're on Zoom today. I haven't done Zoom one of these in a bit, so this is interesting. But TJ, what up?
What's up, brother? How you doing, man? I appreciate you making it work.
You just got to roll with the punches, man. That's just the way it is. So tell people about yourself, what you do, and all that shit.
So for those of you who are not familiar with me, my name is TJ Hodder. I am the host of the Hodder Show podcast that has been going for coming up on 5 years in February. Almost, we're nearing 300 episodes, so that's pretty exciting. It is a kind of a bit of a variety podcast, but most of my bread and butter is I do music interviews, album and EP reviews, interviews with random people, content creators, and interesting people, as well as I also touch on a little bit of paranormal and conspiracy theories, relationships, pretty much whatever I feel like talking about is what I talk about. I also do another podcast, Mikes and Beers, which is a pretty self-explanatory drinking podcast, beer review. And I used to work in a music store in town in Bowmanville. And that's pretty much about it. I brand ambassador for a beard company, Mean Beard. Lovely fiance and cats. And
where'd you work in Bowmanville? What store?
Excuse me. So I worked at Gigs Music in Bowmanville. Which is funny because actually the first time I ever saw you was at the Battle of the Bands in 2000.
Oh, fuck.
15? No, man. No, listen, let me tell you guys something if you don't know, okay? This dude right here, badass front man, okay? When I saw him play with his old band, which I'm not going to talk about unless he wants to.
We can talk about it.
Okay. Because I had heard, okay, because I worked there, it was 2013 to 2015-ish, somewhere in that ballpark, maybe late 2012.
Yeah.
And I had heard about this band out of Coburg, I believe, that are really good. And dude, you should check them out. I heard from like the Out of My League guys and a ton of other bands that would come into the store all the time. Man, you got to check these. You're really going to like them. They're right up your alley. So I'm kind of more like a hard rock metal guy. That's more my vibe. So I'm like, oh yes, these Earthbound guys. Oh, you got to check them out, man. You're really going to like them. And, so when I saw you guys playing Battle of the Bands, I was all excited. You guys came out and crushed it. So I was like, yo.
I mean, the judges weren't too happy, and same with the security. They weren't too happy with that.
Oh, screw them, man. Listen, I'm going to say this officially. The first couple of years, basically up until I was a judge, to be honest with you, the judging was terrible. It really was. And even the guy, I'm totally betraying his trust, but even the guy who ran it said that he didn't really agree with the judging sometimes. So, but the last couple of years that I was there, we had some really good. It was myself, Anthony, formerly from Out of My League, were two, and that year was really good because we were like, hey, we actually like metal and hard rock. Whereas the other judges would sit there like,
yeah,
oh, where's the jazz fusion? Like, shut up.
Well, I think an issue they had was that Earthbound show was fun as fuck, but I think the issue was someone got their nose broke in the pit.
Yeah, I remember that. You're just a riot inside of my friend. You just come out there, it's like, what's up? It's like,
I mean, the thing is, we did bring our pit starter guy with us, and we kind of just told him, we heard the rule, and we're like, yeah, can you just kind of ignore that and go fuck shit up? And he's like, yeah.
Oh man, so that's okay. So that's I never heard the story as to why you guys didn't even place.
No, we got four.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, well, see, no. I said I wanted you guys to win third because that was our prize, and I was like, "Yo, I want to give these guys some free shit. That would be really cool."
I think the only reason we got fourth at all is just because we actually engaged the crowd a lot more than a lot of the other bands.
You guys brought a crowd too. From what I remember.
We brought a few people, but and then the other issue was it was the production setup we had for it. We were trying to bring our own equipment in, but they were forbidding us for bringing but one band had all of their own equipment, which is why we were so confused.
Yeah, I haven't been invited back since the 1 year where I think I kind of maybe stepped on some toes about that. Because I was like, look, like you're asking these, like, especially if you're in a band who plays shows and like you have a setup that you like to use, and then all of a sudden, hey, use this Marshall.
Oh fuck.
Like, oh, I guess you can use your pedal boards, but we'd rather you don't. Like, how do you expect the band to perform? It's like, well, it's not fair for the kids that have never played a show before. And like, I get that. And everyone deserves a level playing field, so to speak, but not everyone's on the same level too. Like, sorry, it's a competition, right? It stopped being a competition. The last year I was there, it wasn't a competition anymore. And that was like, okay, there's no first or second. Dude,
everyone won a medal.
Oh, bro, listen. Okay. I don't like bashing anything because the people
I love that this is what we're starting
awesome.
with.
I know. Like, what the what even? But really, really quick, just the people who run that are awesome. I have nothing but wonderful things to say about them. But I think he kind of felt pressure, like, a participation medal. And it was just the band who got first place definitely should have got it. But like the fact that there were some bands who, like, just to be honest, I didn't think were that great. I was kind of like, okay, cool. Like,
so whose mom complained is the question. That's
and I know whose mom complained, because she complained to me, and I'm like, lady, listen, I have nothing to do with this. What was really funny. This is okay. I might get in trouble for saying this, but I don't care. Fine. So at that last one that I was there, Neil from 3 Days Grace was there as a judge.
Yeah.
Which to me was like, screw the Battle of the Bands. I was just like, so Neil, what was it like writing all your great records you've written? Like,
well, yeah,
I was just losing it. Yeah. But someone came up to him after the show. He was like just kind of hanging out. I don't think she knew who he was. She just knew he was a judge.
Oh, God.
She was like, so I'm just curious why my child's band didn't place higher. And he was just like,
they sucked.
They're not very good. I was like, and he was polite about it. Like, he was like, well, they're just not quite up to the same tier as the other. Just anytime you get parents and a competition in 2018 onward, there's just no way, man. It's just, it's brutal.
See, and that's why, like, for my management and booking stuff, I don't work with anyone under 18 because I'm not dealing with any fucking parents. That's a nightmare.
Have you before?
I almost did.
Okay.
There was a girl group I was talking to, which, funny enough, now I think they won a Juno, so I might have fucked up by passing on it.
Dude, what are you doing? Is that how it always goes, though, dude? Listen, there's real quick before you finish your thought, just to interrupt you for a sec. There has been a couple bands that, just to be completely honest, that I didn't think would make it, that have destroyed. And I'm like, didn't see that coming. Awesome. And I'm happy for them, but it's like, I did not see that coming. And there's some bands that I'm like, oh, these guys are going to be huge. And they break up after one EP, So
I know, you never know. That's the fuck thing. But no, there was this girl group in Toronto, and I got, at the time, I was working as a festival coordinator for a company in North York. Like, I was doing a lot of bigger festivals at Downsview Park and shit like that. And I guess someone on their team, I guess, their development team, whatever, reached out to me saying, hey, can my girl band come play a free set? Like, she was like, yeah, they'll come play for free. Just, they want the exposure. I'm kind of like, no. But also, I'm like, there could be a lot of money in this. So I met with them. They were very nice. They had a good plan, but I was just kind of like, for the time being, it didn't make sense for what I had going on. So I kind of passed on it. And then when I found, like, a few years, like, oh, I think they were nominated or won a Juno. I'm like, well, missed the boat on that.
Shouts to them. That's and it happens, right? You can't guess them all, right? Like, it's just kind of is what it is.
I don't know. And there was a band during the Crownlands era. There was a band that I passed on that I really wish I fucking did. I'm not going to say the name of the band, but I'm very, very upset that I didn't.
Yeah, shouts to Crownlands, who are just slaying the world. And they're from Bowmanville area. Like, what the, like, how does that even happen? Talent.
Yeah, but let's say they're two astral beings. That's the only way I can really describe them.
And they're still like the sweetest guys too. Like, it hasn't like oh my gosh, not not Cody. I always forget his name whenever I'm doing a podcast. Kevin. What? Why do I always forget his name? Anytime I'm recording, I always forget names of people.
Yeah.
He worked at the store I worked at for like, I think for 5 minutes. He did like a couple coverages for some lessons, and he was like just the coolest dude in the world, an amazing player. He actually bought a really cheap pink Strat off me that just for whatever reason, this Strat was like, sounded gnarly. I couldn't figure out why. So it was all stock Squire Strat. And he's like, can I buy this off you? I'm like, hell yeah. And he still has it. Like I commented on something the other day and he commented back to me. He's like, dude, I still have your Strat. And I'm like, first off, you still remember me, which is cool to me. It shows you the kind of guy he is. But then also he remembers like personal details like that. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm so happy for their success, man.
No, both those guys are always memorable of people. They're very, I don't know how they do it, man. Cause like I was with them from September 2016 to April 2018. And like that last year, the amount of shows and people they met and we met while on the road, like, and I know that we went back to some of those places and they remembered like all those people. I'm like, I can barely fucking remember my name, let alone all these fucking people you meet. Like, I don't know, man. It's just those guys, they're on a different level.
It's just next level. That's all it is, man. Like just you meet some people, you're just like, how do you do this? Like I've talked to people who are, interviewers and like, they'll remember, oh yes. And if they've done, 100 episodes, they're like, oh yes, episode, 17, I interviewed this person. He said this. And I'm like, dude, if I can remember last week, I'm happy. Like just, I don't know. It's crazy, man. It's crazy to think about.
This is my 49th episode. I'm past 50 next week, and I don't even remember. I can't even tell you half the guests, to be honest with you.
And congrats on that, by the way, man. Like 50 is a big milestone for a podcast because in my experiences in the game, quote unquote, a lot of people don't make it to 50 episodes. Like they just, I don't know what it is. Just and that 30 to 50 is crucial for a podcast, in my opinion.
I think. Well, what happened was it was almost like cheating in a way because I started it in April and I was doing 3 a week, so which is why I got so many episodes in so quickly. And then I stopped at 39, doing the live Instagram thing, and then
that's right, yeah.
And then I switched to the audio only format, and then I did like 5 or 6 of those, and then I switched to this format. So yeah, that's why I was able to get over 50 in a year.
I mean, whatever, it's I used to do 2 a week, so I get it. I got to 100 pretty quick. I think it was about a year I got to 100 episodes, and it's like, how did I do this? Like it's crazy. But that's what's interesting about like with what you're doing is, you've got people who they'll start off one way. And I always say to people, it takes about 50 episodes to kind of really, truly dial in and figure out who you are as an interviewer or as a host or a co-host or whatever, and exactly what you're doing and what your show is all about. Either 50 episodes or about a year, I say. Like if you don't do weekly, I always say to people they're like, hey, when do you think I'll have this, kind of figured out? It's like anything. You gotta do it. You gotta put time in. You gotta put reps in. The more you do, the more you try and better yourself. Just the better it's going to be. So for you, it's cool that you're going back to the video too, because that's kind of almost in a way how you started, right, with the live stuff.
Yeah, I think that it was always going to go back to video because I just wanted to improve production value and try to make it better and better and better. And like, I'm happy with where it is now, but like my grand vision in the next few years is to like get an actual studio set up with like I'm actually doing my first multicam live podcast for my Christmas episode that I got lined up. So like I'm turning my bedroom into like a full studio. I'm bringing in lighting. I have a guy come and do multicam shots with a video board. So that's eventually what I want it to be. I'm just testing it out for Christmas.
Yeah, man. It's interesting. Like that multicam setup, the quote unquote, the Joe Rogan setup, as some people might call it. Yeah. If you go back even to like, I think maybe about 60 episodes ago on my show, I used to kind of tongue in cheek rag on quote unquote video podcasts. For whatever reason, I never embraced it. I was always like, video's a pain in the ass. And, some people are not comfortable on video. Like they're just not comfortable. Some people are more comfortable because they can see themselves. It feels more like a real conversation. And now lately, the last, 50 or so episodes, I've kind of started to embrace it a little bit more. And some people are like, oh, it's about time. It's your, almost 5 years. You just start. I mean, I would do it once in a while, but doing I tried doing like a multicam setup before, but just with a webcam and stuff. Right. And it's just, you need that video board. You need someone running the board to really properly go all the way. Right.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And that's why I'm testing out for the Christmas one, because I can see how this one goes. And it's also just for exporting purposes. It makes it so much easier having that person on the board switching it. All right. So we're going to take our first music break right now. And we're also going to hear a word from our sponsor, Anchor. And then we'll be back here in a bit. See you in a few.
Honey sauce, I'm going down south when the leaves turn gold. There's too much I've witnessed here and I feel so old. And I won't forget, but I know it'll fade. That's the way it's got to be for new times to be made. In the west of the middle, I've been deciphering riddles, but it drains me so, and it strains my airflow. Before I go, turn the lights off, and bring me close, honey sauce. And turn the lights off, and bring me close, honey. Honey sauce, our faces once met in the northern quarter. And little did I know I'd send myself to the slaughter. Clueless every time to what waits past the door. And maybe next week I'll stop falling to the floor. A child raised on games, I'm so sick of words and names. It tires me out, and I'm left darkening down. Before I go, turn the lights off, and bring me close, honey sauce. And turn
All right, we're back. Part 2. Thank you to Anchor for once again sponsoring this episode. TJ, I don't know where to go, man. Just the world's fucked. Everything's fucked. I hate everything.
It's been that could be the name of your autobiography. I hate everything.
That's my autobiography. Yeah.
You know what's really a quick funny thing here on that note? Originally, the way that my podcast, quote unquote, came to be. By the way, I just said my podcast and I apologize. I'm not used to being on other shows. So I really appreciate this because it's like, this is like my second ever like podcast, quote unquote, interview or whatever. So I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm so used to saying like mine and everything, but it originally started with me joking around with people at the store about how I'm going to write a book.
Yeah.
And the book is entitled, wait for it, Why I Hate Everybody and Why It's Your Fault.
That's a great title.
But I was going to fuck up the spelling. Like your would be the wrong your.
Ooh.
But it'd be like backwards. So it'd be like why I hate everybody and why it's your fault. And just, yeah. And then that transitioned to that's going to be the name of my podcast. Yeah. And then from there, here we are. So it's funny you say that.
What made you want to get into podcasting to begin with?
I've always thought about this, and it's funny because it literally started off as an excuse to stay in touch with the friends I had made working at the store. It is really that simple. I was going to start doing like band interviews and stuff like that for the store. And it transitioned from there into I was like, hey, I have a lot of time at home. I was working shift work. So like, I never got to see my fiance. Like I was always home alone, and I was, to be straight up about it, I mean, I was pretty down in the dumps because I'm like, oh, my dream job's gone. No. I didn't really feel like playing music. I didn't feel like playing guitar. Like I didn't even really like listening to music. I was listening to a lot of podcasts. So I was like, man, I like to talk, if you couldn't already tell from this interview here today. And I'm like, I should do a podcast. And I looked around and I had like an old microphone that the old owner of the store gave me. And I had like a mic stand, and I had my old iPod that had like, it was an iPod Touch at least. So like it had like GarageBand on it.
Fuck yeah.
So I was like, man, like I could do this. And I'm sitting on my couch and I'm just like, man, if I did a podcast, I could call it a Hodcast.
That would have been a sick
And then I
name.
laughed for like 15 minutes because I thought it was, cause I think I'm the funniest person in the world, right? Let me like say that. So I laugh at my own jokes and my stupid thoughts all the time. And so I went in and I recorded about a 20-minute pilot of just the worst thing you've ever heard in your life. But it was, to people in my life, it was just passable enough that they were like, okay, I think there's something here. And unfortunately, the whole Hodcast thing was, it was already trademarked.
Fuck.
So by a douche who doesn't even use it anymore. So shout outs to that person, but they still have it trademarked. So I'm kind of like, they paid for like
just in case they wanted to use it again. Like what?
I guess, I don't know.
Right.
Cause I looked into it and I'm like, and basically if I really wanted it, I could get it, but like I'd have to pay. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like just,
no.
So then the Hodder Show came to be because I stole the name from a couple other podcasts.
You know how many podcasts are named to Chat with Matt? I didn't even check. I just thought it rhymes. I don't care.
Well, yours is A Chat with Matt, which is so much better than Chat with Matt. I'm like, what is that? What is Chat with Matt? A Chat with Matt to me just sounds better.
The thing is with this podcast, and I'm sure many listeners would know, I don't try that much.
Well, I would disagree with that because you're doing things. You're talking about a multi-camera setup and everything, and like
but
you're going all in, man. I think you are.
That's just production though. That's simple shit. I don't give a fuck about it.
But a real to me, when my podcast started to really when I started finding my groove with chatting with people and things like that, was when I kind of stopped giving a shit about oh, okay. And then we'll transition here. And then from here, we'll talk about this. And then let's talk about, because I would listen to them back and just go, what is this conversation? There's no back and forth here. There's no, you're talking with somebody who is just sitting there answering basic questions. And then it's like, okay, next question. Who wants that? I don't want that. Do you want that? Like,
No.
especially if you're speaking with anyone who doesn't know you. I've discovered that like I've had the honor of being a lot of people's first podcast, which is always really exciting for me. But if I come at them with that kind of bullshit, they're always just like, yes. Because they don't know how to respond to that. Because it's like, you know, guys who've never been interviewed. So it's like, yes, we are a band and we like playing music. It makes us feel good. Like, it's just, but if I come at them like a little different, like, hey guys, so like, what is the first music you ever heard? What got you into music? Like, and then from there we talk about whatever, how much this album sucks or how great Linkin Park, whatever it is, you know. I always find that's a lot better, but it all stemmed from me standing in the music store, just shooting the breeze with people and learning about them and who's your favorite guitar player? Oh, you like him? Well, he uses these strings. Oh, really? Oh, cool. Yeah. Like, and I'd be able to do some research on that person and, hey, I want to sound like this guy. Okay. Well, you need this, this, and this. Well, I can't afford that. Well, here's an alternative. You know what I mean? Like it all stemmed from that. And then I discovered, hey, I just really like rambling on aimlessly for an hour. So it kind of it's snowballed from there. And, you know, I've never focused on just one thing. If you ask the average person who knows about my show, they're going to say, oh yeah, that Hodder Show guy. Yeah. He does like music interviews and stuff like that. And that's, I'd say about 80% of my show. Then I do the album showcases and stuff like that, which is probably like 15%. And the rest is like, I'll do paranormal stuff. I just did for my Halloween special, I did like readings of like paranormal stories sent in by listeners.
Yeah.
Which is something that I have no business doing that, but I'm like, hey, something different. I've talked about relationship stuff. Like I had, you know, my boy Chris from Dragged on to talk about conspiracy theories, which was just me sitting, listening to him ramble on about, you know, 9/11, man. Oh, let me tell you about that. And I'm just like,
neat.
Neat. Like, I'm just like, and shouts to Chris, I love him. But yeah, it's just like, I try to be really lighthearted and I try to always keep things really positive because that's why I stopped doing what I call reviews. Now I call them showcases.
Yeah.
Because I would get slack. People would be like, you're just saying positive things about this record. I'm like, well, yeah. And they're like, well, that's not a review. And I'm like, well, you're not a person. I'm joking, but
well, you're not a person.
You're not a person, so fuck you. But it's like, I'm just like, that's just me, man. Why would I have, if a band hits me up, which I'm blessed to be in a position, #blessed, to be in a position where, sorry, excuse me, holy cow, where bands will, where bands will contact me and say, oh man, like I heard your episode with this person. Would you ever consider, you know, reviewing our album that just came out? And I'm like, hell yeah, I'll do it next week. Why would I go on and be like, okay, so I feel like the bridge, the third section of the bridge, this one melody here, I just really don't feel like it fits. Like, who the fuck am I to I'm like, I used to like kind of break down lyrics and stuff even. And I'm like, I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, why am I breaking these songs down? People are hearing them. I'm not in the industry. I'm not a prolific songwriter or anything. Like I'm just a fan who likes to talk music. So that's,
yeah, but that makes you the perfect person to review it because because you're not jaded by the industry
or just jaded from listening to music too much, I guess. I don't know. It's weird. Like I'll talk to some people and I mean, don't get me wrong. There's been some stinkers I've been sent before, just to be straight up about it. Where and
you know how much shit I get sent? Oh my God.
Dude, I can only imagine. Cause you do that cool thing where you have like your music. I mean, your listeners listeners and watchers, I guess, just heard when we took our little break there, like you play some badass music and like, but I mean, you've got some talented cats in your camp though, man. Like, I mean,
yeah, I try to. I don't know. I just like to play music I like to listen to.
mm-hmm.
And if you don't like
That's
to
it.
listen to it, don't fucking listen. I don't care.
Exactly. Like that's always been my philosophy with music I have on the show. Like if a band hits me up and I listen and I'm like, I don't know if this is a good fit, I'll tell them. I mean, it's maybe happened like 2 or 3 times, maybe, I think, in the last few years, but where I say to them, like, listen, like, this isn't my jam. I don't really know what to say about it. Like, I don't know if it's a good fit. But then at the same time, I just did a hip hop rap album for the first time, right? Yeah. So it's like you always try and expand. You always try and I'm constantly trying to at least broaden my horizons and try to get better. And, you know, let's not ask the same bullshit questions all the time. Let's not make the same really lame, stupid jokes. Like, it's just, you always try and get better, right?
Well, and that's the thing, especially when you're developing any sort of project, it's just taking the time to grow and make it better than it is. And that goes to any musicians too. Like if you don't get if your music doesn't get put on my podcast or TJ's podcast or any shit like that, just keep workshopping it. And eventually someone will say yes. You got to get 1,000 no's before you say yes, my dudes.
Exactly. That's it. You got to do something 1,000 times too before you start getting good at it. Like it's just, I listen to, I used to always, like I was saying about Joe Rogan earlier, it's interesting because there's been a few times where people have referred to me as like the Joe Rogan of the Ontario music scene. And it's always,
that's a hell of a compliment,
right? Like but what's funny, man, is when it first started happening, I almost took it as an insult in a weird way. Cause I never liked Joe Rogan's podcast. I never got it. I was always like, that dude, he just rambles on aimlessly and talks about like DMT and all this shit. Like what?
And that's the brilliance of it.
and then you know what the difference? I listened to an episode he did with James Hetfield from Metallica, right? It was like a 2.5 hour podcast, which I love long podcasts. Mm-hmm. And I sat and I listened to it. And for about an hour, they talked about James Hetfield's love of beekeeping.
Fuck.
Yeah. I just went, I get it now.
Mm-hmm.
I totally get it. I'd be like, he's the worst interviewer ever. Yeah, he is. That's why he doesn't do interviews. And then I'm just like, it just clicked for me. Like I'm really ignorant sometimes with stuff. I try not to be, but I'm just like, oh. So then I like would go back and listen to my stuff, which I don't do a lot. And I'm like, I get where that's coming from now. People who listen to him, it's like, they're like, oh yeah, you like the Joe Rogan of the. So now I'm like, that's a hell of a freaking compliment. But I remember the first person who said it to me, I was like, I think I jokingly was like, you watch your mouth, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, obviously I had respect for Joe Rogan, but it wasn't until this year that I really like, now I'm a big fan. Like I listen to it and watch him all the time. But so I'm kind of like, okay, I get it now. I don't remember what I was going with that. I had a point I was going to make, but like I was just gonna say, you look at him, like he's done almost 2,000 episodes, and he talks about how like he didn't start getting anywhere till like episode 500. And I'm like, shit. And he was already famous. Like,
yep.
So I'm like, okay. It's some people say to me like, I just had someone the other day. They're like, dude, and I don't really like to surround myself with people like this. So, but it was someone who's not really in my life anymore, and they were like, oh, you're still doing the podcast, eh? I'm like, yes, sir. They're like, oh. I was kind of like,
oh, you're still a person, eh?
Yeah. Oh, you're still alive? That's unfortunate. No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking. So that's one of my favorite things I ever said on my podcast, which was, if you hear "yeah" by Usher and don't shake your booty, you're not a person. You don't have a soul.
I can agree with that statement.
Yes. Every time it comes on.
You have to move.
Yes. I can't twerk, but yeah. But anyway, this is how my brain works too. So like I'll be in the middle of a really deep conversation with someone about like their affinity of Chester Bennington or something like that. Linkin Park comes up a lot on my show recently, so I always go back to that. Which, I mean, you know, Linkin Park, I mean, being of our age group, obviously they're heavy hitters. But I'll be like in the middle of this heartfelt thing, and then all of a sudden someone will say something, and then I'll just go off about some dumb bullshit. And next thing you know, oh, we got a podcast now. Like now we're just riffing on something stupid. The most recent episode that's coming out on my show as we record this here was a really great chat that I did with the guys from Judgement. And there's a section of that podcast where we're talking about like them doing a recording somewhere where there was like roosters and like chickens. And it's just us talking about cocks for like 5 minutes. Cock talk. And it's just like, what is happening right now? Where did this come from? Like, it's just, but to me, that's the kind of stuff I like to listen to. At the end of the day, musicians and creators should create things that they enjoy. As much as I don't go back and listen to my own stuff, because I think that's kind of, it's maybe a little weird. Musicians, it's different. I obviously go back and listen to it while I'm editing it, but it's pretty rare that I'll go back and listen to episodes where like, oh yeah, this is like, I'm probably going to go back and listen to that one because just I was like, this is a really fun episode. And you know, if every 3 years, whenever I have my fiance on my podcast, when she agrees to it, I'm like, well, actually every 5 years, it's like, I'll go back and listen to those a bunch just because like they're special to me. Or if there's an episode that for some reason has some kind of sentimental value, I find I go back and listen to it. But it's like, at the end of the day, when you're done, when you press that stop button, if you're happy with it, if you go, that was good, or at least, hey, that was pretty good, you know, that's, to me, I'm like, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I was like, that was a garbage one. If that just sucked, it would be like, what are you doing? So you got to do stuff that makes you happy. And I don't even know where I'm going with this anymore. My point of this whole elongated thing, folks, is do things that make you happy and create what you want to create. And I know, Matt, like, I know that's what you're doing. Like you're doing stuff you want to do and having music on you want to have. And if we're all doing that, especially with this fucked up year we've had, I think it's put a lot of things into perspective for a lot of people. Just do things that make you happy and everything else will fall into place eventually.
Well, the only reason I even started this podcast was because of the pandemic. I got laid off of work. I had nothing to do. Mm-hmm. I wasn't keeping in touch with a lot of my industry friends. And then I figured, I'm like, well, I can just have a conversation with them and reconnect with them. And that's definitely helped not only keep my name in the industry, but also just stay connected with people. And it's something I've always wanted to do because I did radio. I did a radio show when I was in college, and that got really popular and a lot of people were listening and enjoying it. And then that kind of fell off. And then I don't know. And then I kind of came back around to this because at the end of the day, I just like talking to people about random shit. And I just love talking and getting to learn things and expand my horizons and have an understanding of just different aspects, especially of the industry. Like next week, especially for my big 50, I have Alan Cross coming on, which I guess I'll say now.
Wow. You're going from my dumbass to, wow. Talk about an upgrade. Holy shit. They got TJ Hodder, Alan Cross. Holy shit. That's cool though, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's like, I think Alan made sense for the 50 just because he's such a juggernaut in the music journalism industry and also just in the industry in general. But no, I wanted to have you on because I knew it would be this kind of conversation of fun, enjoyable. And I just like talking to people. I don't really look at stature. Like I've definitely had some bigger guests and I know that, but like at the end of the day, it's an interview to me. Like I don't get nervous. I don't get like, oh, I'm interviewing Jay McDonald from the Trues. Oh, I'm interviewing Ed the Sock today. Alan Cross.
That was a fun one. The sock one was fun.
Yeah, I wish the Ed the Sock one went on a little longer. He only had a limited amount of time, but hopefully I can get him back on down the line because he's launching his new music network thing. So hopefully I can have him back in for that. But speaking of 2 points that came up to me while you were going on about everything back
my
then.
Elongated ramblings.
Your elongated rambling. First thing, where were you the day you found out about Chester? Because I remember so specifically the exact moment where I was.
Yeah. That was 2016, right?
Something like that,
I think somewhere in that ballpark. I was, I think I get the memories mixed up with him and Chris Cornell for some reason.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because they were so close, literally and figuratively, like they were close. I was literally actually walking home from work at my old job. And what's kind of a weird thing, I hadn't listened to Linkin Park in a long time, and the night or there's a couple days before he passed away, a buddy of mine and I were jamming, and he had just learned Faint. on guitar. And he's like, oh, we should jam Faint. Like, it's such a fun song to jam. And I was kind of like, oh man, like, I don't know. I haven't listened to that song in forever. And after a couple beers, I was like, hell yeah. Like, everything's a good idea to TJ after a few beers. So we were jamming Faint. Like, I'm like trying to like sing it and rap it, and I can't do either. So I'm just like, like just screaming at the top of my lungs. And then literally 2 days later, I'm walking home from work, and my buddy texts me. He's like, dude, check Facebook right now. I'm like, why? He's like, just check Facebook. And I go on, and it's like, Chester Bennington just passed away. And when it first dropped, there was a lot of uncertainty about what exactly happened, from what I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And then it was ultimately a suicide. And it's like, oh my gosh, like just, it was heartbreaking because, again, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I was the biggest Linkin Park fan or anything. But obviously, I loved Linkin Park. Like, being a millennial, I mean, you can't not. I was in high school when that stuff came out, man. Like when everything, all their biggest stuff, when it all came out, you know, I was in high school, and like it's just crazy to think about the impact that he had. And still to this day, even when I'll have, you know, younger people, quote unquote, on my show, and they're talking about Chester Bennington, he's just this juggernaut in the industry as far as a vocalist, and in some ways even a very underrated vocalist in some ways, because people would be like, oh yes, he's that guy who sings in Linkin Park. And it's like, man, his voice was so, one of the coolest things I ever heard about him was someone said when he screams, there's like 3 screams in his one scream when you really listen to it. And even like I said, like Breaking the Habit, where excuse me, sorry about that, guys, I'm really flummy today for some reason. When you listen to like even like Breaking the Habit, he really shows off his vocal chops, but then at the end, like when he lets out that yell, it's like, it's just, there's something about him that was so unique. And he was just such a, from all accounts, obviously I never had the pleasure of meeting Chester Bennington, but just a gentle, wonderful soul. And like, just, it was rough for the industry, and it was rough for his fan base. You know, it was a rough one for sure.
The thing is, I got into Linkin Park later. The first time I ever got into Linkin Park was I watched the live DVD live at Milton Keyes. So I was like way later to the game for Linkin Park, but I absolutely found love and went back to Earthbound for a sec. When Earthbound came around, I was watching a lot of Chester on stage, just watching how he engaged with the crowd, how he moved around. That's kind of like Chester, Ivan Moody from Five Finger, and Corey Taylor from Slipknot. I kind of like based the stage persona that I had around them, which is why like I was running around, jumping into crowds, all that so kind of sense. Shit. But no, when I found out about Chester, I was with Crownlands. This was just post Rock Search after they won, and we were at 97.7, the radio station. They were doing some promo videos for some upcoming stuff they had going on. And what happened was we were in the midst of recording a song, or we just finished recording. They just recording a video. And one of their news guys came running down into the studio where we were in the basement. And he literally just flat out said, and this was about 15 minutes before it like broke everywhere. He said, yo, Chester Bennington killed himself. That was the exact wording that he said. So like I found out it was suicide
right away. Yeah, it was
right away, which was fucked. And I literally remember I went over to like the program manager's office, because we were going in and out of the office, and I literally like shed a few tears because I was actually so distraught, because I just could not process it, and I was so fucked up for the rest of the day. And then like same with Gord Downey. When Gord Downey passed away, that fucked me up for a day.
That was that's another one that like did you watch the I don't remember the name of it, but just that last live performance they did. Did you watch it live? Yeah. Like I watched that live, and I mean, I have friends of mine who are just massive Tragically Hip fans, and I do regret that I didn't get it. Like obviously, I loved the popular hip songs and stuff. Like if Wheat King comes on, you don't sing along. Like, are you even a Canadian? You know what I mean? Like, so I appreciated them, but I was never huge fan. And actually just this past summer, my friend who is like massive Tragically Hip fan, like just worships Gord Downie. We were at my buddy's college and he's like, hey, I want to do like a Gord Downie tribute night. And I'm like, that's cool. He's like, I need you to play guitar with me. And I'm like, I don't know how to play any Tragically Hip songs. And he's like, it's okay. We'll get through it. Like, you're good enough. You can just follow me. I'm like,
Okay.
I can play New Orleans just sinking like a motherfucker, but otherwise, just ask me to play that. That's it. That's all I know. Just that one part. And we did this tribute for him and playing the songs and really having to pay really close attention to the lyrics and the vocal melodies. It's because he sings them beautifully. Like he sings them just like as close as you can to Gord Downie as possible. And afterwards I was just like, I get it now. And I went and I got everything I could of Tragically Hip because now I'm a fan. It took that to kind of push it over the edge for me. But yeah, like when he passed away, that was just like, that was horrible. That was just like, because like you knew it was coming, obviously, because he was very open about it, but didn't make it any easier, right? Like it's just an icon in the Canadian industry. And
that's the thing with, to get kind of morbid for a sec, the concept of death. It's like, is it easier to deal with it knowing it's coming, or is it easier to deal with when it happens all of a sudden? Because I lost my mom the same way to cancer, where I found out December 2014. They gave her 4 months to live, and it was 4 months right on the dot, March 2015. So while you can mentally prepare yourself for it, even though I had 4 months, I couldn't mentally prepare for it. So it's like, is that better to deal with, like with Chester having that happen suddenly, or with Gord watching it happen, because they did those shows? Yeah. And I don't know, there was something, I remember seeing a YouTube clip of I forget what song it was, but it was when they were in Toronto. It was like their last show in Toronto, and it was one song, and he was like doing some intense like screaming, singing at the end of it or something like that. I forget what song it was, but oh my fucking God, it just ripped my heart out. I started bawling.
I think it was Grace too.
Yes.
Cause he, that was the song where he actually started crying at the last performance. And that was one that, again, I didn't really get it until I saw the performance of it. And I was like, okay, like just for whatever reason that it's hard. Cause like everyone deals with death differently, I guess, and everyone has their own coping mechanisms and everything. And when you know it's coming, I mean, I haven't had, aside from losing, some close grandparents, I haven't had, a situation where it's been someone closer than that. I mean, obviously I was very close to my grandfather, but like, so it's like everyone has their own way of dealing with things, right? And everyone has, some people would want to know ahead of time. Other people, why would you want to know? I guess because it's kind of hanging over you, I guess, in a way, if that makes sense. And in your situation too, like, I mean, it's does knowing make it better? I guess I guess in a way, if you know, you'll know that you have like, hey, I have this much time to kind of get as much time with them as I can. I guess in a way, some people might say that's a blessing, but at the same time, it's like, the hourglass is running out, I guess, so to speak, right?
Yeah, it was a blessing and a curse, I feel like, because I was in the midst of, I was in my first year of music business management at Durham College while this was happening. So like, I went home for Christmas in December. I was taking my mom to a couple doctor appointments, but I didn't know. And that's when I found out, like right around that time. So, Christmas was great. And then, I went to school, but the thing is, like, for me, and I've never publicly talked about this, but hey, might as well now. I developed a bit of a drinking problem during like that first couple months of 2015, January, February, where I was drinking. At one point, I was drinking a 40 a day.
Wow.
Like it was pretty brutal because I just didn't know how to cope, and I was making, and I made a lot of bad decisions back then in my life, especially like sleeping around, all that stupid fuckboy shit, whatever it is. But like now I went through it and I came over their side. But the thing is, it took me 2 years to process my mom's death because I just wouldn't accept it, because something that my parents instilled in me, and I don't blame my dad for this at all. And it's kind of what gave me my work ethic now to like push and do everything I've done up to this point. It's just to keep pushing, keep grinding no matter what. And like one of my biggest regrets is on the day of my mother's funeral, I went back to school to work an event for my grade. The program gave me an option to write an essay in lieu of doing it so I could spend time with my family. But I decided to go distract myself because at the time I thought that was the best decision for me. But looking back now, I wish I could go back and not do that. But we live and we learn.
Exactly, man. It's life, right? Like you can make decisions. Everyone has stuff, that they wish they could go back and change, and but it's good to be able to admit that too, right? Like you can sit here today and say, hey, I made a bad decision on something, and I'm sure your family, can understand that. It's a work ethic thing, right? Like there's, when you're built like that, you not only is work an escape, but also you feel like you have to. You feel like you can't say no matter what. Like, I have to do this because if not, I'm going to fall behind. And that's something that people like you who have that kind of work ethic, like it's in your DNA. You can't help it. So as much as I'm glad that you're able to share that, and you can say, hey, like you can look back and say, hey, this was not a great time in my life. I was able to, you're able to sit here today and talk about it and say, hey, this is, you're drinking and that, like, obviously it's something that's tricky, especially drinking that much a day. Like, and it's, and expensive too. Like, I mean, which is the other side of it where people talk about drinking problems and it's like, oh yes, it's bad mentally and emotionally, but then also it hurts your wallet too. So it's like,
and as a college student, I didn't have a lot of money. So.
Exactly. Right. So it's like, okay, hey, should I get some ramen noodles today? Nah, I'm going to go get a 40 instead. Like, fuck it. Yeah, so exactly. It's like, but everyone's different, man. Like everyone has the way of dealing with things and coping with things, and you can never tell someone how to deal with things. You can never rob a man of his bottom. And just sometimes, and I mean, hey, sometimes the best way to deal with things sometimes is just kind of keep your head down and keep on keeping on. But eventually, that thing might catch up with you. So yeah, and like you said,
and that's the reality of it. And that's advice I always give to someone. Like if someone in my life that I know, like has someone that passed away or loses a pet or anything like that, it's like, I always say, take the time to grieve now because it's going to catch up to you later. And while the world does spin nonstop, at the end of the day, you have to take care of yourself first, which is why I always go back to, when you're on an airplane, they're like, if the masks drop, you should always put your mask on first before helping someone else. That's exactly how I live my life now. Like if I can't fucking breathe, I can't help you.
Exactly.
And I think that's just the best way I can live my life.
Especially with the year that we've had, like,
fuck me,
it's, I mean, I'm really trying to focus on the positives because I mean, me personally, I was able to leave my shitty dead end job and now I have a job I've been wanting to get for 10 years. So it's like, that's a big positive of this year. But then also there's been a bunch of bad. So it's like, I try really hard to be constantly positive as possible and, focus on the positive because it is so easy. And that's why I made a decision that aside from a handful of times, I haven't really talked about COVID or anything on my podcast. Like I'll mention it.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of the elephant in the room. You have to at least be like, hey, so what are you guys doing with this, man? Oh, what's going on? Like, but it's almost like I'm like, I want to hear like, oh yeah, man. So like, we've written all these songs and we've done this. I don't want to hear like, yeah, so I got laid off and I've been sitting in my underwear eating Cheetos. Like, I don't know. I mean, that's
listen,
a great.
Can you not call me out like that? I really appreciate you call me out.
It's like, come on, man! I told you that in confidence. Like, it's, but like, and again, if that's what you've been doing the whole time to people, that's fine too. Like, we're in a really fucking weird time in the world, and like, there's no telling, as we record this, we're kind of, we're in wave 2 again. So it's like, well, shit, man. Like,
I just can't believe how insane this year's been. Everything. It's been all over the place, especially with everything going on, not only COVID wise, but politically and socially, and just everything's so fucked.
Stuff was on fire. Like, what the fuck?
Stuff's still on fire.
Stuff's still on fire. Yeah. Like, it's just like, it's such a weird, it's such an interest. Like, this year's going to go down as like, this was the year that shit went down. And like, this is 20, 30 years from now, they're going to teach this in classes as history and be like, my grandkids will come to me and be like, hey, Grandpa, like, do you remember 2020? And I go, oh, shit.
Sit on my lap, boy.
All right, listen, here's what happened. So it started off that things were on fire, and it ended with things on fire. And in between there's a virus, and
and also lots of fire.
Trump, and also more fire. Yeah. But then your granddaddy got a good job, so like that's cool. But then like some other shit happened. It's just like
and more fire.
More fire. Like it's so weird, man. It's been such and that's just what you hear from a lot of people. Like people I speak with, like there's been so much bad, but then like there's like a little sprinkle of like one good thing.
Yeah.
And like there's been a few people that are like, hey, I have, family that they were not able to have a baby. They had a baby this year. So it's like, hey, hey, let's take the good with the bad, right?
There is some good in the world.
So it's like, I try really, really hard to focus on that and not complain so much, because like I look around and I go, hey, like I got things pretty good. I can't complain. I got a roof over my head. I got a job at least. That was one thing for me. Like I've worked this whole time, right? And I was working with the public. So like there were times where I was like, man, I wish I could be laid off. Like there was a time period from like March to July. I was like resentful to people who were laid off, because I was like, I can't be laid off. Like if I go like, I was just like, oh, this is bullshit. I could be doing all this podcast stuff. Like I think about where my show would be as if I was laid off for that time. And I'm like, buddy, I'd be at episode 400 by now. I'd be doing daily stuff. I'd have like 6 new podcasts. It'd be ridiculous. Like just ridiculous. But I'm like, you know what? Because I kept working, I was able to, because I have friends that they were at home alone because they live alone with no human interaction from like February 20th to like July, August. No human interaction. They ordered their food, like no human interaction. And like, I would call him, but it's like, otherwise he'd be like, dude, like, I don't even know how to interact with people anymore. So I'm like, okay, I was like, okay, I need to check myself. I need to be grateful for the fact that I can still interact with human beings. And I had friends I worked with. So it was like, I was able to keep my social interactions up. So I'm like, yep, good with the bad, right?
And that's why, like, I'm so curious what it's going to be like when we're able to go to live shows again. Mm-hmm. Like, I talked about this last week with Justin, and I think, and I definitely think there's going to be some sort of live music renaissance period where people are excited. Like, as a music fan yourself, like, what do you think about, is there going to be a music renaissance? Because we're losing a fuck ton of venues. But that being said, Oshawa is getting a shit ton of venues.
Yeah, I think that we'll see it for sure. It's funny, man. I just said this yesterday to my fiance. I'm like, we were talking about things that we are going to make sure we do more once, the things go, quote unquote, back to normal, whatever that will look like. And I said, number one, we're going to everything. Because dude, listen, I am an extroverted motherfucker for the most part, but I'm also lazy. So, hey, man, we're having a get together. And I'm like, oh, shit, man, it's 9:00. I just put on my PJs. Like, we're watching something. Like, if you catch me at like 8:00, I'll be like, hell yeah. But if it's like late, I'm like, oh, man, it's already 9:00. And they're like, dude, it's a Saturday night. Like, yeah, but
It's 9:00.
we just loaded up this documentary about kittens, and I'm really looking forward to, like, you know what I mean? Like, just some dumb bullshit.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we're going to everything. And I said, I don't give a shit who's playing. Mainly if it's, to be honest, mainly if it's bands I know, because I was always the worst at going to shows. I'm not going to lie. It was because of my work schedule.
Yeah.
Like, I worked Tuesday through Saturday most times, or I'd work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, off Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or some bullshit like that. So it'd be like, hey man, we have a show on Thursday at 11:30 at night. You gonna come by? And it's like,
No.
I work at 5 a.m. tomorrow, man. And I think there needs to be some changes on that note too, because that bullshit can't happen anymore, because it won't survive.
No.
We need to figure something out where it's like, if you're playing at 11:45 at night on a Thursday, and I know it's like sometimes there's only so much you can do, right? But like, as a fan, I'm like, I really want just even 9:00. Like, just let me get home by about midnight. Let me at least get like 4 hours of sleep. If I can get 4 hours of sleep, I can function just fine. If I get like 2 or 3, that's a bad day for everybody. So it's just, but what I think we're going to see is there's going to be this huge boom, because especially with bands who like were getting ready to really start pushing this year, which I feel for them majorly, because it's just, there's been a few bands I've spoken with that just, this was, they're like, man, this was our year. Like, this was going to be our big push year financially too. Like, they were like, we put all our eggs in this basket, and that sucks. But I think we're going to see it, man, where there's going to be people who just are like, I want to go to everything. Who's playing tonight? Yeah, let's go see him. He's a country artist. I don't care. Let's go see him. Like, just, and I think we'll see it happen. It's just, there has to be some venues left to keep it going. So we have to do what we can to help support local bars and stuff, even if it's with takeout and things like that. Like, there's so many businesses that have been evolving to where now they offer takeout because they basically have to. And there's been some places that I've seen, unfortunately, that they're like, nope, we're not doing it. We're doing this, and we're going to stick with this, and we'll be fine. And it sucks because you don't know if they're going to survive or not. And only time will tell, I guess, right?
And to touch on your point of like the scheduling for shows, I kind of went in and out of booking shows at the music hall, but like the last segment of time I was in it, what I was doing was I was starting shows at like doors at 7.
Yes.
Bands at 8, show done by 11. But
see, that's awesome. I like that.
You know why I did that? So I can get home at a reasonable time.
You don't give a shit about other people. But, I mean, listen.
I'm very selfish in what I do. I'm not going to hide it.
Do things for you, and most, like, to me, I'm like, hey, like, if there's a band playing down the street from me here in Peterborough, and it's like, hey, like, I can't remember who it was. There was buddies of mine who were like, dude, we're playing 10 minutes from your house. And I was really excited. And then it was like, oh, hey, man, we're not going on at 7 anymore. We're going on at 12.
Nope.
And I'm like, shit, son. Like, I got to literally be up at 3 a.m. to get to work for 4:30. I'm like, they're like, oh, man, just pulling all-nighter. I'm like,
no.
I'm almost 30, bro. I can't do that anymore. Early 20s TJ? Hell yeah. But no, not anymore. Even 20-year-old TJ, there's no way. Like, I was not that guy. But so it's like, you gotta, and I know it's not the bands necessarily. I know it's the promoters or the people who are booking the shows or whatever. But it's like, hey, man, do we really need 12 bands playing 5-minute, 10-minute sets? Can't we just have 3 or 4 bands that are playing like 20-minute, half an hour sets? Like, especially if they can do it. Let's go, oh, hey, we don't have enough material for that long of a set.
Come back when you do.
Exactly. I didn't want to say it, but yeah, just come back when you do. Like, it's just like, that's what's different for me is like, I'm not in the industry, so I don't feel like I can say things like that, whereas you are. So I can kind of be like,
you have just the right to say it as I do. It doesn't matter. It doesn't fucking matter what the position is. In fact, the fan has more of an influence on what happens at the shows than
That's
the reporter
true.
does.
Yeah.
Because if the fan's not showing up, no one's making money.
Exactly. And the reality is, I wasn't showing up because it's just like, hey, I can't do that. Like I can't. But it's tricky for me too because like and I always felt really bad because I got called out on it a lot by some people who are just like, oh, you talk about how much you love the industry and the scene, but then you don't come out to shows. And I'm like, hey, man.
Life's a thing.
Yeah. And just a lot of people don't really understand that. They're like, well, you have time to do the podcast. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm recording at 7 a.m. and I'm, getting up at 4 a.m. to edit stuff to make sure I have it out. And like, I can't, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's hard, but yeah, like I think what, to answer your question, I think what we'll see is, I think you're right. There's going to be this renaissance of like, with all types of entertainment, I think we're going to see it where it's like, there's going to be just this explosion of everyone wants to see everything, do everything. I think we're going to have a big boom in the entertainment industry where it's just like everyone wants that in-person content because people have been having to deal with live stream shows and just live videos and stuff, which is great. Don't get me wrong. But some people don't like the whole drive-in theater thing. And like, they want to be in person. They want to be able to stand next to some random dude at a show and mosh pit with them and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I can't wait for that first like mosh pit at like I don't know, like a really, I'd say like a Slayer show, but they're not a band anymore. Yeah. So maybe like a Lamb of God show or something.
Oh, it's gonna
be nice. That first wall of death. Everyone's wearing masks. Whew, it's gonna be brutal. Or like a 5 Finger Death Punch show or something. Like it's gonna be brutal. Oh, it's gonna be awesome. And I'm like, I might be a part of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. All right. So we're actually when we come back, we're gonna take our final break now, and then we're gonna come back and I want to talk to you about those drive-in shows and stuff like that when we get back. So we're gonna take our final music break, another word from our sponsor, Anchor, and we'll be back in a few. See you in a bit.
Wake up, you're sleeping. Wake up, you're sleeping. Lately, I've been a slave to this darkness, just trying to figure out what sets me apart. But maybe I'll find that it's brighter if I embrace who I was at the start. With patience wearing thin, in places you have been, find comfort in your skin. Don't like the path you're walking, then wake up. You're sleeping. You're sleeping. The things that set us apart are now a break us close. Now I feel so alive now that I've broken. Hard to define you are when you're caught up by the dark. Sometimes it gets hard to see the flip that begins to spark. We're chasing after ourselves, but it gets hard to keep pace. So tell me, what does it take to finally feel in place? Take their hands off from your eyes so you can see what they won't tell. It's what we knew deep down inside, that maybe we control ourselves. Maybe we control ourselves. Maybe we control ourselves. Maybe we control ourselves. With patience wearing thin, in
And we're back. Final music break. TJ, what's your thoughts on drive-in shows?
I'm for it. Whatever gets people out there experiencing your music and your performance, I think it's a good thing. It's just tricky because there's not always places to do them. So I think it's a good Band-Aid, so to speak, on the industry. Like if people, I think the biggest one that was an actual drive-in theater show, like where it wasn't like a live performance, was that stream that Metallica and 3 Days Grace did.
Yep.
Where that was cool because it was a unique live performance that, like, I mean, 3 Days Grace have uploaded a couple of videos, but like the only way you were really going to experience it was there live. And it was just like, it's like going to a movie theater. It's the same thing, just you're experiencing a live concert. So I think that's something that can kind of maybe help a little bit. And then from there, going to the actual drive-in shows where you're seeing a band perform live or whatever. I think that's cool. I'm all for it. I've seen things where there's like little like rail corrals that keep people 6 feet apart.
I love those photos.
Yeah, I've seen those things where people are like, oh, look at the cattle in there. And I'm like, listen, if it gets us out to shows at this point, whatever. I'll put a bell on around my neck. I don't give a shit. Like, just I'll sit there. Like, I don't care. Call me whatever you want. I don't give a shit. If it gets us to be able to have live music and say and help that industry more than anything, people in that industry who are they're dying. Like they've got no money coming in. That's more what I care about. I don't like, obviously the artists, yes, like that's important and everything, but a lot of artists they're able to make money in other ways, and they're discovering how they can do that. Whereas the, booking agents and maybe not so much them, I guess, I don't know, but like I'm blessed to know a tech for a band, and he wasn't able to make money. Like, and now he's doing other stuff because he can't make any money if he's not touring. And the band is being cool, and like they're like kind of helping their crew out, but like even they can only do that so much because they also have families and they have stuff they got to pay for. So it's like it's hard, but whatever we can do to start getting money flowing back into that industry, I think is a good thing. So
yeah, it's going to be a long time until we're going to be able to do those shows the way we want to again, and especially like on a local level, because like Toronto's losing venues left and right. Oshawa's announced a few venues, like the music hall team. We're moving into the new building, and that's going really well. The Rook is opening up soon. The old music hall building is now going to be turned back into the bit more theater, and that's going to be another venue. So we're going to have all these venues, but like with the legal capacities, depending on what the legislation, because I know Durham just went back into red zone.
Yep.
And I have a funny feeling we're all going to be going back into lockdown very soon because shit's only getting worse.
I give it like 2 weeks. I think we'll be. Well, I think wasn't like yesterday, because everything was going up from like 1,400, and I think yesterday it was like only like 1,000 new cases. Which, don't get me wrong, that's not good. But I'm like, shit, that's better than 1,500. So
yeah,
I don't know. We'll see.
The last time we talked about the modeling, what I'm aware of is they're estimating 6,000 a day by mid-December.
Ugh.
Or something like that. I don't know if it's changed. Hopefully it has. That'd be great. But I don't fucking know, man. All I know is just try and keep yourself sane is the advice I give.
That's it. Do something creative if you're a creative person.
Start a podcast. That's what I did.
Yes. Start a podcast. That's what you got to do. Hit me up. I will literally tell you how to do a podcast. It's really easy. You get a microphone, you press play. That's it. Well, you press record and then play. That's it. That's all you got to do. It's not hard. Like, I've had people hit me up. Hey, how do I do a podcast? Do you have a phone? Yeah.
You're good.
You're good, buddy. Oh, yeah. Go on Anchor. It's free. And
shout out to Anchor for sponsoring the podcast. Thank you.
And like, that's it. Like, I think some people are like, wait, that's it? I'm like, that's it.
Oh, yes.
How do I get guests?
Ask them.
Ask them. How do I get big guests?
Ask them.
Ask them. Like, it's just, sometimes it is literally that easy where it's like, wait, so if I want to interview this person, all I have to do is ask, yeah,
Yep.
what are they doing right now? Like, just,
Yeah, we'll say
like,
not a lot
really?
going on.
Yeah, they're sitting around at home too. Like, you don't think they would, I mean, some of them are sitting around at home doing nothing, but it's like most of the time, like when you asked me to do this, I was like, hell yeah. Cause I'm like, obviously, I want to be on another podcast, but also it's like, hey, this is going to kill some time too. This is going to be fun. Let's do it. Like, just do things that make you happy. Do things that are going to stimulate your brain a little bit. Don't just sit around watching The Office on repeat all day. The only reason I say that is because it's like, after a while, your brain is going to be mush or watching anything for just sitting around watching anything. It's just, if you need to take some time, that's everyone's going to need some time, but like try and do something. I say to people, like, even like if it's once a week, try and do something productive for the day, just to keep your normal routine. That's what a lot of experts have been saying, where it's like, if you're at home, get up in the morning when you normally would, make breakfast, have a shower, walk out the door. Even if you're not going anywhere, even if you walk around the block and come back, it just kind of helps you to keep things feeling somewhat normal, so that when things go back, you're not like, whoa, you mean I have to wear pants? Ugh. Like, just, it's like, we got to do what we can to try and keep ourselves sane. And for some people, recording a podcast is a great way to do that.
And that's
being
why
creative,
That's why I'm happy I'm able to do these once a week right now and just take a little bit of time, set up my whatever this is, set
backdrop
up and
thing.
just my backdrop and my lights, and just have a conversation with someone for a bit of time. And thankfully, I'm working again. I've been working since August because I got a new job, so that's been great. Making Bezos his money, but
yes,
something to do, and
exactly.
And it's just keeping me sane and giving me structure. But I've also been getting back into reading a lot this year. I've started reading more books, which I've missed doing. So,
which is always good. It's stimulation for the brain, right?
Exactly.
Like, it's just, that's something that I always say, like, oh, I'm going to start reading. Never happens, but just like, as the Joe Rogan, it's the same thing, it's.
Yeah. I know I've been reading, I don't want to say like self-help books, but just books about like improving yourself and stuff. So like, I'm reading, what's his name? Gary John Bishop. I posted about it on Instagram the other day.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah.
I read his book Unfuck Yourself, which was a great book. And then I'm reading another book of his called Wise as Fuck, which is those was great. But then I also read this book called Essentialism. I can't name the author off the top of my head, but Essentialism was such a great book. It helped me reformat my life, because my issue was I was doing too many things. Like, I was doing shows at the music hall. I was being a manager. I was being a booking agent. I was working. Like, I'm in a committed relationship, which is like a full-time job in itself. And like, I'm thankful that this time has happened, this pandemic, because it's able to help me reformat my life in a way where when things are able to go back to normal, I know what my plan is and I know how to not stress myself out to the point of losing my mind. So I think that's a really big positive for a lot of people.
Yeah, there's been a lot of people I've spoken with over the last year. Like, it's that reset where it's like, okay, what's truly important to make me happy? I was about to get another part-time job, and I was talking with my fiance about it, and she's like, why? I'm like, well, just, so we can have a little bit extra money, and she's like, okay, but why? Like, and I was just like, well, so we can afford stuff. She's like, so you're going to spend your only time off going and working some bullshit like retail sales job or something to make maybe $200 taxes out when it's all said and done, maybe a little more than that, to not have any time to yourself or time with me, to just, for what? So you can afford gas a little easier. Like, just, I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, I was like, you're right. Holy shit. Like, yep. Okay. You're right. You know what I mean? So it's like, you have to prioritize things, or I'll get something. I get these things where I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this new podcast idea I have. I'll hit up my graphics guy, Jason from Jailbirds Alerts, and I'll be like, dude, like, here's my idea. And he always entertains me. He's the best. He's my brother in arms. And he'll be like, cool, man. And he'll like maybe like do some bullshit logo for me or something. This has happened like 3 or 4 times. And he'll be like, yeah, man. And he'll do it. And then like a couple weeks later, I'll be like, yeah, it was a really dumb idea. Like, it's happened with a wrestling podcast. It's happened with a couple other projects. And like, I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Hey man, I'm going to start a beard club in Durham. And he's like, okay.
Cool.
Makes the thing. He's all for it. Then I'm like, oh, that was a really stupid idea. He's like, whatever. Like, he's a huge supporter, but like, yeah, it's just sometimes you can do too much.
Mm.
And I was doing my show, Mikes and Beers, 2 Guys in a Game, the network, editing and producing 2 other shows while trying to be a brand ambassador for a beard company, while working a full-time job, while trying to be a good friend still at the same time, while also still trying to build a relationship and getting ready to propose to my fiance. So I was like, shit, son. And I mean, half of those things I'm not making any money. So it's like, it's just for fun, which is fine. But I'm kind of like, okay, let's take a step back ski here. Cause I have I remember a friend of mine was like, oh, hey man, like, do you want to come over on Thursday? Like have like a boys night, play some games or whatever. And I'm like 2 years from now, or like, when do you mean? Like I would literally book things. Like I had a little app on my phone that was like a calendar, and I would schedule like almost like play dates. It was a joke. And I was just like, okay, this is ridiculous. What am I doing? Like, just
I schedule everything in my life.
Yeah.
But the thing
I still do, but yeah.
I do it so because my memory's fucking dog shit. So
yeah.
That's the only reason why.
I had 2 alarms set this morning. One was at like 7 a.m. to wake up. And at that alarm, it said a chat with Matt. And I was like, yes, that's right. And then at 9:40, a chat with Matt. I'm like, yes. And then 10:40, a chat with Matt. I'm like, yes. Because I'll just start doing stuff. And the next thing you know, I'm like, oh shit, I'm in the middle of cooking or something. And it's like, oh no, I gotta do this podcast I'm really excited about, but like, I gotta do it in like half an hour. And I'm like, oh shit, like cook pasta, God damn it. Like, I'm just like, yeah. So I find I set alarms for a lot of stuff in my life. Yeah. People make fun of me at my new job because they're like, hey, can you do this? I'm like, yes.
Got it.
They're like, what'd you do? I'm like, I set an alarm. They're like, seriously? I'm like, I'll have like 10 alarms set throughout the night. It's just,
hey, whatever works.
It's how I function. It's just, I'll schedule free time too. That's how I am nowadays. I'll be like 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. TJ time. I'm just like, what I do with TJ time? I don't know.
That's your next podcast, TJ time.
TJ time. Yes, that's it. It's just me sitting on the couch doing nothing or whatever. It's
perfect.
Like, but that's me too, right? Like I would for God's sakes, I did something for my Patreon that was the Happy Commuter podcast, which was me commuting to work, just rambling on uncensored about all this random fun, dumb bullshit. And like my Patreons liked it, but like, they're like, dude, like have some time to yourself. Like, holy shit. I'm just like, this is because I was like, I have an hour drive. Like, oh, I got to use this time productively. And it's like, dude, like relax, like just listen to some music, put on a podcast. It's just like there's another alarm right there. Look at that. Like it's just
perfect timing.
Yeah. When your brain goes off and you have so many things in your brain, it's like, as I'm sure you get too, like, it's just, sometimes you have to schedule things. And I think that's okay. It's okay to have lists and remember, but I think scheduling me time is very important too. So
I fully agree. TJ, I think it's time we wrap this up. Yes, I know you're a busy man. You got a lot going on. So where can people find you and what you do?
So easiest thing to do, social medias for the Hodder Show, all at the Hodder Show. That is the HODDER for the Hodder Show podcast. You can find it wherever you find your podcasts. Me personally, TJ Hodder on Instagram and Facebook. Pretty much it. Check out Main Beard if you have a beard. And yeah. It's about it. I appreciate the hell out of you having me on, man. It's been an absolute blast. It's been a pleasure to be here. Congratulations again on 50 episodes, and enjoy your episode next week. That will be with a much better guest in Mr. Alan Cross.
Stop. This was a fun podcast. Don't even fucking worry about it.
Yeah, it's been a blast, buddy. It really has.
I definitely know I'm not going to be talking. I don't even know what Alan and I are going to talk about yet. That's the thing.
What couldn't you talk about with him? Really?
That's true.
Like, just
there's
he seems
too
like
much.
just an awesome dude too.
Yeah.
Like, just he seems so cool. But I definitely want to have you on my show because I would love to pick your brain about some stuff and kind of hear your journey a little bit more. So we will definitely get that set up sooner rather than later.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. All TJ's links are down below. Like, comment. Audio listeners, share it around, rate it. I don't know what else you do. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out with us for a bit. We'll see you guys next week with Alan Cross. Take it easy.
Thanks,
Peace.
guys.